Warp Core Breach, Episode 37, Night Vision.
Captain, enemy ships decloaking off our port bow.
They're charging weapons!
Shields up, red alert!
They're firing!
Containment failure detected. Warp core breach imminent.
Welcome to Warp Core Breach. On this episode, Nick and David observe a change in participation prizes. We start looking into nationals and worlds, and then we take a look at adding factions or subfactions to the game. Griffin begins testing new cloaking technologies. We offer up a t-shirt design contest. And finally, we all share our thoughts on our top ships to cloak.
Warning. Warp core breach detected.
I'm David Montgomery, and here's my co-host, the Emperor to my groove.
Sorry.
Doe, you threw off my groove.
I did, didn't I?
I'm sorry, but you've thrown off the Emperor's groove.
I threw off his groove.
Sorry. Yeah. That's what you get when you mess up the intro, Nick.
Who messed
Coming
it
for
up?
ya. I don't know. Maybe I did. I threw you the curveball. It's not a Star Trek intro.
Curveball. I just recently started rewatching Deep Space Nine, and they do feature baseball.
I know. I think that might be why I love any kind of random episode of Deep Space Nine, because there's a good chance it has something to do with baseball. Or at least you see the baseball on Sisko's desk.
Yeah, and a buddy of mine recently said during watching that it's like got to be one of the most boring games. That and golf.
The feels, it just, that hurts.
I went to so many baseball games as a kid that I got bored of watching them and spent, a lot of the time in the parking lots catching fly balls. And yes, I caught a lot. I was more into playing the game just because I'd seen so many.
I can understand that. I have a different appreciation for baseball for the statistics of it because of my math brain, and also I did the scorekeeping for my high school team, so I got to be in the dugout with the team, and that gave me a different insight to the game.
Well, you feel more part of it as well.
Yes. And that was a really cool thing. But I like the symbolism that existed in Deep Space Nine when Sisko left the baseball.
Yeah.
And then Gul Dukat's got it, and you can kind of sense the worry.
He's coming back. He never really left.
He left this for a reason, and that means he's coming back, and I don't like this.
It was an omen.
Yeah.
Important.
And you could tell maybe he was just accepting it. And Weyoun never quite understood the true gravitas of it. And that was all the better. Oh,
absolutely.
I'm not a big symbolism person in terms of catching it the first time around, but that time I got it.
Well, don't forget what Carlin said. Symbols for the symbol-minded.
Wow.
That was not a shot at you because you're talking about not catching it on the symbolism.
Right.
This is actually props to you.
That reminds me of the Italian running joke of the wife who pasta away. And that whole line.
Saucy.
Yes.
That's a spicy meatball!
We're going to avoid the puns. It's too much.
What about the punts?
No, that's American football.
Okay, how about the bunts?
That's Greek. And also a delicious type of cake.
Bunt the ball? Punt the ball?
I know, but it's a bunt cake.
I was talking about sports still.
I know, you bunt the ball in baseball.
Yes, there you go. I was trying to get you to say that.
It's one of the most exciting plays because it's probably the play where the most errors occur.
Mm.
And then chaos ensues, and it's like, ha!
Well, because if you surprise bunt, you could really mess with everybody, but it doesn't always go as planned.
Yes.
And that's what makes it interesting.
Yeah.
And that, for me, is the coolest thing about baseball, is that, as predictable as it might seem for some people, I'll use the pun, it's like, you never know when they're going to throw you a curveball.
This is why we continue to do this show, and how it continues to amaze me, because we didn't even think we were going to talk about baseball. It just came up. Nick and I have been talking for like an hour before the show. Baseball never even entered our mind.
It's been like 2 hours.
Yeah, and then here we go. And folks, we promise this is not a sports show. It will not turn in.
Starfleet!
It will not turn into a sports show.
Yeah, no. We're nerds at heart. Yes, we enjoy sports here and there and that, but we're not jocks.
Oh, I'm a sports nerd. I love baseball.
Yeah.
I love a lot of different things, and it's a good time to be a Bay Area sports fan. There's a Game 7 of the conference finals on right now. There's Game 1 of the Stanley Cup finals. Mm-hmm. And I should probably be watching sports right now, but instead I'm recording a podcast. Yeah,
and I should probably cover my butt on what I said there. Like, when I say we're not jocks, anyone out there who thinks they're jocks, if you're just someone who plays for the sake of playing and you don't have any other connection to it, that's kind of what I call a jock. There's more to you if you actually put thought into the game. You pay attention to stats, tactics, and things like that in the game. Right? Like, jock has a bit of a negative connotation to it, and like a serious player, I would never call a jock.
Yeah. I'm with you there.
Yeah.
Makes sense. You've got a brain, and you're engaging in what you're doing. You truly understand what's going on. You're not just
you're invested in it. Right. You're not a mindless drone. 7 of 12.
5 of 13, yeah. Something like that. Alrighty. So, Attack Wing. Nick, rescue us. What have you been doing in the world of Attack Wing lately?
Well, last week the plan was to play a big free-for-all, everybody with 200 points, and 20 points of that can be used for resources, but a few people couldn't make it, so we had to postpone till this week. So last week there was just 4 of us, and we just played some one-on-one, and I broke out a Ferengi fleet that actually did quite well. And I don't normally play Ferengi, so it was fun and quite interesting. And as it turned out, my opponent actually, one of his ships was a Ferengi Marauder as well.
Wow.
So I had 3, we were playing 150 points. I had 3 Marauders and the Quark's Treasure. And Quark's Treasure was dealing out at least 4, if not 5 damage, or 4, if not 5 dice, depending on how it rolled or shook out, each attack as well. So, needless to say, I cleaned up. No survivors.
So I'm taking that it was a little bit of cross-faction?
Very little.
Okay.
I did throw type 8s on there just because the concept of where I feel like Diderodexes are just too weak. And Ferengi they don't have enough punch at 3 dice, so I just bumped them up to 4.
Yeah, and this is something I've said, but it bears repeating here. Something like type 8s, or a generic stat booster, needs to be something that every faction has access to. It really needs to be like a universal faction card, where you can just pay 2 points, 3 points, whatever it is, and just get an extra attack die. Limit it to low attack value ships, whatever.
Still put the restrictions on it, just not faction restriction. Because it's unfair to essentially be racist.
Yeah.
Right? And, for the all-encompassing, welcoming, federation, in the game, it almost feels like the most racist of the bunch. It's like, sorry, you can't use this, you're different. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I completely agree that it would certainly, I wouldn't say balance the game, but it would ease a lot of emotions and things like that if they had completely neutral upgrades. Like in CCG, they actually had a neutral affiliation, per se, that just would go on anything. There's no lock to it, no restriction, in the sense just, oh, well, you can go there.
Sure.
There weren't many, but...
That kind of a boost would work on a lot of things. I think Klingons get the short end of the stick there because they have all of one ship with a primary attack of 3. But maybe counter it with a boost of defense dice if you only have one defense die.
Well, here's the thing. You wouldn't just make a +1 primary weapon value or +1 attack die for ships of 3. Like, you'd make one for attack, you make another neutral card for defense, you'd make another one for, say, shields or whatever. You'd make one card for each generic concept that can apply to all factions.
Right. Probably not whole.
No, that's why I skipped that one over.
Yes.
That one's a little too significantly impactful just to tweak by one hull, one way or the other. I think that's another reason why flagships were not revisited.
Unless you said that you couldn't put it on a 3-hull ship.
It'd have to be on a 4 or larger.
Yeah, a 4 or larger.
For shuttles.
Or... I don't know. I think I'd be okay with a 2-hull ship going up to 3, because I don't think that changes any, or if it changes any, it's a very small handful of cards. But it's that swing from 3 to 4.
Yeah.
That's where everything changes.
Game mechanic-wise and the way the cards are right now, I completely agree.
But then how do you future-proof something like that? That's the tricky thing.
Yeah. Future errata. Or reprints.
Well, now with the big board cube, that can affect a couple of things, but not many. I don't know. I think it would still work okay. Yeah,
it's like another thing that the game has kind of skewed far past the point of correcting this, but just given that they were limited to 4 slots of icons on the action bar, to me there was no reason to exclude Klingons and Romulans from scanning and battle stations. Like I said, the time is far past to just simply correct that, just with the way all the cards have skewed. But there is no justification to take those away from any of the factions.
Yeah, well, Klingons have it back now with Gowron.
Yeah, but it's extra costing and all that kind of stuff to a simple concept of just battle readiness, right? Efficiency and effectiveness. And, taking that away from the Klingons makes no sense. Taking away from the Romulans makes no... taking scan in particular away from the Romulans makes less than no sense. Right?
I do grant that.
Granted, I'm diving into the fluff side of things, but those should be locked-in concepts, and they should just simply have added in, oh, by the way, you can cloak and echo as well when you're cloaked. Right?
Yeah, there's no reason Echo needed to be on the bar.
No, not at all.
I could have seen Klingons living without scan.
Mm-hmm.
And I could have seen Romulans living without battle stations. Give and take, mix and match.
Yeah, I could have accepted that a lot more, knowing what I know now, of course, than the way things had shaken out. That's kind of what I was gonna get to when you got there on your own. Is do the trade-off, ditch the sensor echo and have that built into the cloak ability right in the rule book, so you don't need to take up the spot on the card.
Right. Yeah.
But again,
hindsight.
Daydreaming.
Yeah, hindsight, things to do in a 2.0. Yeah. Who knows? I I will say this. I'm glad that there's cards out that are at least attempting to fix it. I understand that they cost more points, but at least they're good for what they do. They're not terrible cards. Like Gowron, yes, he's 3 points, but to get battle stations and another action is really good. It's free battle stations. It's the reason people put a starter per card on Klingon ships when the game first came out. Like, that was the reason you took Picard. Plus, you wanted skill 9.
Yeah, it was a way to level the playing field a little.
Yeah, so...
Considering that Klingons didn't generally cloak much in the beginning.
Yeah. Now, bits and pieces.
More so now than before, but generally in the early stages, you rarely ever saw them cloak.
Well, you'd cloak to start. You wouldn't cloak again.
Right. You'd start off cloaked, get your first initial run bonuses, and then you'd stay decloaked. Yeah.
Yeah, because you had no reason to recloak. You wanted attack quality.
Right. The only time you would perhaps recloak is if you're coming around for another pass and you had a gimme turn.
Right. Or you thought you'd be shot at multiple times and that's better than evade.
True. But I mean, commonly, like without going into specific situations, if you had a gimme round, sure, I'll cloak. I've got nothing better to do.
Why not?
So why not for no real cost because it's a free round? You know, nobody can shoot. Okay, cloak, because that's pretty much a gimme. It's a given. I'll do it.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
I don't say the same word more than once in the same time, do I?
Not at all. So my only thing with Attack Wing has been a bit of painting and some assembly required. I broke down and I bought some really cool pieces from Underground Lasers.
Oh yeah,
and they cut card. Well, it's not really cardboard; it's wood and acrylic. And so I got a dry dock model and some other stuff that I'll be using in the Task Force Bravo campaign.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and I got some ships painted by Dean. So he did a great job on a Equinox and a Prometheus and Fed Fighters. He's working on a Romulan Dideridix cloaked version of it.
Nice.
Go Dean. Trying his hand on it. So I said, hey, you have free reign. I got too many of these models, so if it looks cool, then go for it. If it turns out meh, then I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, it'll be unique and different, and that's okay with me. So, anytime you get those different things, I like it. It adds variety.
Yeah, this fall I think I'm going to invest in an airbrush kit and teach myself how to use it.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
It's a totally different level of painting. I
kidding.
Saw when I was up in Sacramento a couple weeks ago, I saw some guys using airbrush for Warhammer miniatures. I'm like, yeah, those look a lot nicer than anything I can do.
For the little figures, I see it as overkill for much more than like coats or certain things, but like on the larger models, yeah. But then again, if you're talented enough, you can do fine detail with an airbrush. Yeah. My perspective is my own skill, which is 0 at the moment with an airbrush.
Right. I mean, an airbrush can be great to get like a base coat.
Yeah.
And I can see that working real nice. But, for the large models.
Yeah, or blending if you're doing a cloak effect. You can put on your base coat, then you can put on your main color, then you can put on like a swash of black or gray or whatever, and then you can paint the lines or divides or whatever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to repaint a Borg cube, the big Borg cube.
Yeah, instead of going
an
with
airbrush
a brush.
would probably... Yeah, airbrush would save you a ton of time.
Actually, my suggestion to anybody who wants to repaint the Borg cube, Get one of those small paint rollers. You'll thank me.
Not the big wall one, but like a touch-up one.
Yeah, like it's the same style as the wall roller, but it's much smaller. It's like a third the length.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's just like a short handle, and it's like a toilet paper roll size.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or almost like a lint roller.
Yeah, but it's still got the same angling.
Okay.
Yeah, it's still got that sort of L angling or T angling or whatever you'd want to call it.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not a painter.
I've done a fair bit in my day, but it's mostly assisting, so it's not like I mastered the lingo or anything.
Yeah, I've been thinking about repainting the first cube now that it might actually see play.
Yeah, I was what you would call a painter adjacent.
Is that like second place is Victor adjacent?
Gold adjacent?
Yeah. It's not silver, it's gold adjacent.
Right. Oh, wouldn't it suck to be bronze adjacent and not be silver?
No, that's still gold. Because on the metal stand, it's gold, silver.
I suppose. It depends on how you're factoring it, yeah.
So bronze is still gold adjacent.
There you go.
That's bad. That's awesome, but it's bad.
Well, I can certainly say I'm not nationals adjacent.
I don't even know where to go with that.
Nationals are coming up for quite a lot of people. I believe the UK is coming up first next week. Am I right? Or next weekend?
Yeah, June 3rd through 5th. So by the time this goes to air, today, tomorrow, and Sunday.
Yes.
So maybe some of you are listening to it as you're getting to nationals, in which case, good luck.
Yeah, as you're flying, driving, riding, walking, canoeing, snowshoeing, perhaps? I don't know.
I don't think it's snowing that heavily. Helicoptering, jetpacking,
whitewater rafting, warping, beaming,
horseback riding,
trilling.
Okay, we're done. We promise.
I find Star Trek trilling.
So yeah, we'll see what happens. I think last year it was a double Vorcha, double fighter list that won. So I highly doubt something like that will win again this year. The meta's changed so much in a year.
Yeah, there's a new retail Vorcha, so I'm
upgraded phasers kind of took fighters out of favor.
Yeah, there's a number of new toys to fight back.
Yeah, we'll see. It's a really interesting situation. The UK, at least at the national level, has always been different than what I'd expect to come out at a super high level. And it's not in a bad way. It's just, I wouldn't expect that to be what rose to the top. But
well, a lot of it is like the metas are different in each major area. In large part because of the distance. You know, the styles are different, the techniques are different. You know, sometimes it's a personal thing, sometimes it's a cultural thing, and it's just the thought processes can be a little different. And sometimes people still go for fun and just play extremely well. So they might have a build that's not considered top-notch by design, but when played skillfully, takes the prize.
Yeah, it's something I was having a conversation, and I ended up reaching the point where I think that the better player wins more matches than they lose. Unless they're up against an almost equal player with a superior list. Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter how good your list is or your fleet is, if you can't execute it properly, you're not going to benefit from it. In fact, you may even suffer more because of your lack of execution or understanding of it. Which is another reason why I don't recommend people to just simply copy lists that they see online. Go with what works for you. Go with the way you think. Try your own thoughts and strategies. Play with individual pieces of them to get a better understanding of it. Maybe play them for fun to learn, but don't just simply copy it, take it to Worlds or Nationals and expect to win.
Right, because a lot of this game is how do you pilot?
Yes.
It's what do you do when something goes wrong?
Learn how to place your ships in the very beginning. Spacing can be very important. Learn how to project in your mind where your ships are going to end up after maneuvers, where your enemies or your opponent's ship are likely to end up based on what their options are. And sort of predicting where they're going to end up and positioning yourself to take advantage of their future location, that's key. And that's the basis of tactics and strategy in warfare. Thinking steps ahead of your opponent.
Right. The only time you should ever be really reconsidering a move is when something unexpected happens, like a ship goes down and now you're like, okay, let's adapt.
Exactly.
Most of the time, I have at least a general idea of what I want to do movement-wise the next turn.
Mm-hmm.
But every once in a while, a ship will die like in the last shot, and I'm like, okay, now I gotta change things up and
right.
figure it out again and go, okay, now what?
It's like, oh, they got a lucky shot, or they pulled something out of their hat and they got my ship way before I thought they would. So now, that means that I wasn't able to take out that ship. So multiple layers of your plan have to be backpedaled and rethought and re-implemented.
Yeah, it's why I'm a bigger fan of like 45-45-30 for a breakdown rather than 50-50-20. Because if you lose a 50, you're hurting a lot more.
Depending on how you build it, yeah.
Yeah, just because A, they've got more points on you, but B, now you've only got one heavy hitter left.
Right, yeah, the thing you got to consider in these situations, it's not just a simple matter of either, you're down 50 or they're up 50. It's you now have a difference of 100. So in order to, balance that, you've got to do twice as good.
Yeah, and maybe they don't build to 50-50, and if you get a kill on them, maybe they're still up on points. So.
Yeah, and that's why it's always a crapshoot, a challenge decision. Like, do I want to spend my efforts trying to take down this fighter's squadron because I'm only going to get so many points for it?
Yeah,
you got to put a lot of effort into that.
My tactic's always been only shoot fighters if they're the only thing I can shoot.
Mm-hmm.
Because, yeah, you want to weaken them so that they're not getting as many attack dice. But every time you shoot them, they get more defense. And
yes.
It's like, yeah.
They're harder to whittle down. Yeah, there's almost something like with ship or squadrons and things like that, you should almost get like 1.5 points or double points for them.
Yeah, or points as you kill levels.
Right.
But
yeah, because seriously, they're quite powerful for what you pay. Overpowered in one perspective, just what it takes to kill them versus cost to bring them out. Not so much, they're cheap and they do lots of damage, which is usually what people think of when you say overpowered. Right?
Right.
Undercosted might be another way to put it. For what they can do, they don't really cost comparative.
So, example there. Hood Riker is undercosted. He's not necessarily overpowered.
Right, exactly.
Because people would say his effect is a perfectly reasonable effect. It's just maybe should cost more.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of that balance. Things to keep in mind.
Points to ponder.
Points. Yes. Well, speaking of points and things to ponder, we wanted to take a little bit of time to ask, what factions would you like to see added to Star Trek Attack Wing? Now, there's a lot of factions in Attack Wing.
Oh, yeah.
And probably at this point, it would be hard to add a full faction and have it function on its own.
Yeah, they just did with the Xindi over Christmas and New Year's with the OP prizes and the Xindi Weapon Zero retail. Throwing 4 ships into the mix in such a short span of time was really what was necessary, and even then, it's still a little on the lean side.
Yeah, but we're getting another retail ship, and that's okay.
Yeah.
So bringing it up to 5, 6, it takes about that many. Now, Species have done it on 3, but that's because they've got really solid base ships.
Literally and figuratively, they're tight.
Yeah. So that's a tricky thing. They were solid with 1 ship.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't think any other faction could do that.
No.
So at this point, what we're really asking is, what do you want fluff-wise? What would you like to see that would be fun to add to the game, probably as a sub-faction, to add to something? For
slips and tribbles?
Yeah. So like for me, and we talked about this in last week's episode with the squirrels, I want to see the Sona.
Absolutely.
And I'll take that as part of Dominion. I'm okay with that. The Dominion need help. The Sona would give them help. We're good. That would be a great addition to the game. It brings something new. It would bring a bunch of new cards, at least 2 expansions, and we're good there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a perfect little fit right there. I've got more, but I want to hear what you have to say there, Nick.
Well, this first one is a bit gray, but I really think that Hirogen deserves their own faction. I love that the Alpha Hunter and Carr and all that are independent for the sake of being able to use them a little more loosely, but I think they're a significant enough group that they deserve to be a faction far more than, say, the Kazon.
I was going to say that. If Kazon can be a faction, then Hirogen can be a faction.
Absolutely. And if I'm not mistaken, the Hirogen Fanatic Hunter is their big, powerful ship. And it looks like the Alpha Hunter is supposedly the Fanatic. When, to me, that is more in keeping with their smaller class, or mid-size class ship. I forget the name of it.
Yeah, it maybe the model is, but the stats don't represent the big ship.
Even it's a bit hazy online. I didn't actually look this part up for the pictures, but I believe the Fanatic has a different layout as well. Like, okay. It's got a similar nose, but the back end and everything is different. But not 100% sure. I'd have to do a little more research on that.
Well, then that gives us some wiggle room.
Mm-hmm. Just for fun, to introduce like a completely new faction of a sort, I was thinking something like the Praetor and Kravik units. It'd be kind of like a fun one-off sort of deal where you just have, a couple ships. Those were from Voyager, the sort of bronze and silver robot androids that were kind of almost Doctor Whovian in their appearance.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Those would probably come in as independent.
Oh, for sure.
But that's not a bad thing.
Mm-hmm. That's why I kind of threw it in on the sly.
Yeah, no, I like that.
Yeah.
I've got one in that vein. The Malons.
Ah, yes. Yes.
Not a big thing, but a Malon freighter would be intriguing. Independent, of course, because there's not enough there to have its own faction.
No.
But I guess maybe this entire topic is more species we'd like to see in the cave.
Yeah.
But, or sub-factions. But I think the Malons could be interesting.
Indeed.
They've really only got the one ship, but they'd have some neat things with the radioactive waste, the
You could
few
have
different captains, and
you could have different versions of the freighter. Like as far as I know, there was the Malon freighter, and then there was like one other smaller vessel other than their shuttle. Because they had a shuttle, they had their main freighter, and I could have sworn there was like one other vessel, but it wasn't significant. But like with the freighters, you could have different scale ones. Like, oh, this is just a smaller freighter. This is a larger one. Because they were modular. They had like the spherical pods on them, right?
right.
So you could have like a small, a medium, and a large one. And that's the other thing for a faction, to me, to be functional and at least attempt to be balanced, is you need to have each faction having a small, medium, and large class of ship. And small meaning not shuttle small, but like Oberth small, or Brel small, or Katinga small, that kind of thing. You know, just the smaller, but still significant.
Science vessel small.
Yeah. Scout. Science, Scout, that sort of deal.
Nausicaans.
Yes!
You're welcome. I don't think I need to say too much about that. They kind of speak for themselves. But Nausicaans, come on.
Oh, yeah.
We gotta have a Nausicaan. Like, by the time this game ends, there's gotta be a Nausicaan.
No kidding. And since we're throwing out races and sub-factions and stuff like that, how about some founders?
Well, yeah.
Like, think of all the interesting mechanics and dynamics that you could use with that sort of thing. You could have really cool admiral with, like, the founder leader. You could have infiltrators that you could get up aboard an enemy ship, and you could start having hindrances like, you know, maybe cutting their shields in half, or every turn, you know, a different upgrade is disabled. Or they put time tokens or something out on that ship each turn on a random upgrade. There's so many different cool ideas you can make use of, that sort of infiltration, subterfuge, you know.
Less attack dice, less defense dice, stuff like that. All kinds of things.
Mess around with you. Sabotage! Get little Beastie Boys going on.
Be able to put the card on a ship, it gives them a boost. But then you can trigger it, discard it, and like their shields go down.
Mm-hmm.
But you couldn't trigger it the round you give them the card.
Yeah. Like a variation on the Tribble thing where, you know, it could help you for a little while and then it becomes a detriment the longer it's on there or something.
Right. But you have to give it to them like at the start of the game or something.
Right.
But it's your points.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that would actually be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could see that. Suliban.
Yes. Tease that.
I know they're Enterprise. I know they're not everyone's favorite, but the cell ships.
Mm-hmm.
I want cell ships. I know I'm weird that way, but I liked Silic.
Even
we
if
got
just give
Shran.
us the crew, yeah.
Yeah. We got Shran.
The Andorians are leaking through. Yeah. We even have Daniels.
Yeah. We need Silic. We need the rest of the Suliban.
Mm-hmm.
I want my little cell ships. We've got the cardboard tokens from that one scenario with the Vulcans.
Exactly.
I want the crew to go with them.
And granted, the original series didn't give us much of these guys, but Enterprise also gave us a good stab at the Tellarites.
That was my last one.
Yep.
Yeah, I want Tellarites, and they can be Federation and or independent.
Yep. They can be either their own faction, or I guess they can be independent when in like an Arapir kind of scenario, and they can be Federation otherwise, or just simply no penalty when Federation, or when mixed with Federation, for example. They're more technological in the sense of like doing the repairs and assisting. They're support based in a lot of their culture and technology from what I recall. So it'd be really neat to see a theme arising from them.
Tellarites would be a little tricky just because we don't have a ton of their backstory.
We don't need too much because it's not like we're writing novels about them. We have the odd ship. We've got their repair station thing. We've got a few things to work from. We have more to work with them than we do the Gorn, and we have 2 retail ships, or we have a prize and a retail ship for them.
True. I think the Gorn are there because they're iconic. The Tellarites don't have a specific episode that defines them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that tricky thing. You have Babel 1, or Babel, or I forget the exact name from the original series, but that wasn't just Tellarites. That was Tellarites, Andorians,
Vulcans.
Yeah.
It was mostly, it was Sarek bridging the whole Andorian Tellarite gap.
Right. Which was awesome. That's a really good episode.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just not Tellarite focused, and so there wasn't something to make an OP out of for the game.
Yeah. And one thing that kind of already exists, but I'd almost prefer a little cleanup of, is mirror universe versus alternate reality. I would love them to flesh out more of the mirror universe as a separate faction and have alternate reality stuff that actually retains its original faction. Like a future Enterprise, for example, that came out should be Federation, and maybe throw an alternate factor on there, like any Federation upgrade Captain Admiral on this ship that is not alternate pays a 1 or 2 point penalty or whatever. Something like that. So that it's still in faction for faction pure players, but costs a little more to mix it up in the traditional sense.
I like that, and I'm going to go one step further and say that they need to subdivide Mirror into Klingon Cardassian Alliance and Terran Empire.
Yeah. Agreed.
As well as the alternate universe things.
Yeah, because realistically, Mirror Universe should never be a faction, period. It should be Klingon Cardassian Alliance and Terran Empire / Terran Rebellion, depending on which time frame you're dealing with.
Right.
Right? And then have alternate as an attribute. And I'm not just saying this because of the way CCG did things. It makes a lot of sense functionally, mechanically, play-wise, everything.
Well, it works really well from the CCG, and if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Exactly.
So that was kind of my thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything else for factions? Because I'm tapped out.
Oh, I could go on for days, but I think it's enough to whet the appetites, tease the brains, and get things rolling for everybody. We can always revisit this in the future.
All right. So, contributors, let's hear what you have to say. Hopefully, nothing new that we didn't cover, but if there is something, well, then all the better. And if not, well, then reinforcement on what we've said.
I'll say hopefully to something new.
Well, there we go.
Hello, this is Steven Stott with Ready to Play Gaming down in Columbia, South Carolina. Here to talk about today's question is, what faction would you like to see enter in the game of Staw? Well, for me, being a hardcore trekker, I love seeing factions that add to the overall theme of the game. Going in the Enterprise era, I would have to say the ship I would like to see would be the Tellarite ship. That would round out your founding members of the Federation with having a Starfleet ship, also with the Vulcans, along with the independent ship of the Kamari, representing the Andorians. And if we added a Tellarite ship to that, then that would round out those founding ships. I have to give a little bit of thought to what I'd like to see, but I think probably on that cruiser it would be comparable to what the Vulcans and the Andorians have out there. Probably would have a 3 attack value, perhaps a 2 evade with a 3 hull, 2 shield, something along those lines to balance out the stats against what the Vulcans and the Andorians have in play. But definitely that is a faction that I would like to see in the game. Obviously, because of the limited number of ships, will probably end up being a part of the independent faction, but definitely a ship that I would like to see. This is Steve Stott with Ready to Play Gaming down in Columbia, South Carolina, hoping all your dice rolls are hits and evades. Live long and prosper.
Hi, I'm Dave Griffin. Today we're talking about Testing New Cloaking Technologies. That's a mission that came with the Apnex, and I'm not sure what it might simulate online. The forces are, for the Romulans, either 50, 80, or 100 points, but still at least one Romulan science vessel starting on the south edge. The enemy, 35, 70, or 105 points, including 1, 2, or 3 ships starting on the north edge, and 4 obstruction tokens on the 4 corners of the map. The exact measurement is apparently under some dispute, but I think it's 2 range rulers from both entrance zones and 1 range ruler from the side. But read the card to be sure. But basically on the 4 corners. Now, the special rules are that the Romulans have a new action they can use when they are within range 1 of those mission tokens. They roll an action dice and disable a tech upgrade on their ship. If they roll a blank, they fail, yet they still get the mission token. They disable a tech, and they take 1 damage to their hull. If they roll a battle station, they fail, but again get the mission token, disable a tech, and get 1 damage to their hull or shields. If it's a cloak ship, it's probably hull anyway. On a hit, they succeed and repair all hull or shield damage. And if they roll a critical hit, they do all those things and get a free sensor echo and the ability to shoot while under cloak without flipping their cloak and a whole bunch of other things. I'm not sure it really matters for this mission except for the repair part. But in all cases, they take a mission token. Now, the objectives for the Romulan is to get 3 mission tokens and then exit out of its starting area. For the enemy, it's prevent the Romulans from winning, basically. Now, the first question you have to ask yourself is how many points to take as a Romulan. I think you really should take only 50 points as a Romulan because you really don't need to give the enemy player more points to concentrate against your science vessel. Because remember, it doesn't matter if you have multiple ships. What happens to the rest of your ships? If your Romulan science vessel dies, you lose. So by upping the points, you're just delivering into the hands of the enemy more ships that they can concentrate on your science vessel, and that isn't going to be offset by the protection of another ship, because in this game other ships can't really protect you. They don't have any way other than absorbing attacks to do that, and there's only a few cards that allow you to do that. So I would say just take 1 ship, 50 points, and make it as strong as you possibly can, and then try to outmaneuver the other ship. Now, the other ship could be any faction. I think maybe the correct faction for this might be Klingon for the enemy. I used a Vorcha, a 35-point Vorcha, and that worked reasonably well. Now, I would say you need a good pilot on the Romulan side. You also need any additional maneuvering upgrades you can get. The Indie-Fed Fleet Captain is one of my favorite resources, and it's good for this episode because it ups your captain skill some, and it gives you just a little bit of extra speed maneuverability that can be critical for outmaneuvering the Klingons. I don't think they will be using this because if you're using a Vorcha, it's pretty hard to get a decent build in 35 points. A couple of other things I used is the highest captain skill I could find, which turned out to be Shinzan. I used Borg Alliance to give me Borga Blade of Hull Armor because I had plenty of points and I was desperate for some way to get more hull points. I used an interface generator, which is really only useful if you have more hull, so I used that after selecting the Borga Blade of Hull Armor. And I used Veril and the Centurion, thanks to Steve Smith's online YouTube video on this mission, to allow myself to cancel 2 attacks, which was critical to survival. Now, the fact is that the Romulan science ship with only 2 hull is very hard to keep alive. And in addition to that, if you roll poorly twice and you don't have the Borga Blade of Hull Armor, you're going to die right there, which you could do by just rolling a blank or a battle station or either one of those in succession. So I'm not sure quite what to do about that except for making the Borga Blade of Hull Armor maybe the first time you fail, or every time you fail, you get to bump the next roll up 1 because you're essentially getting better. So if you roll a blank, the next time if you roll a blank, it counts as a battle station, but that would still kill you. So you can work out your own rules there. So it's a fun scenario because it's really a test of wits and test of piloting and a test of skill. You definitely need the best possible build for the Romulans because you're trying to hold back that critical hit that destroys you for as long as possible. It is possible to win as the Romulan despite Steve Smith's video, but you have to outguess your opponent. You need that extra maneuverability, and you need ways to blunt those attacks. The build I talked about has Veril and the Centurion to blunt 2 of the attacks. Interface generator can be used to blunt an attack, but only late in the scenario after you've gotten the 3 mission tokens, because you need that tech to be disabled if you miss a roll trying to get the token. But the Borg Alliance and Borga Blade of Hull Armor will probably effectively cancel 1 attack as well. So it depends on how many good shots you let the enemy get. You have a good chance of getting off the board with your 3 tokens, but it's very possible that the Klingon will destroy you, or whatever you use as an enemy faction. And here's the thing, there's an element of luck to it too. So if the enemy rolls really well, then you're probably going to die. But if you don't make any mistakes in piloting and you plan well, you've got a good chance to win. A couple of other upgrades that I thought about using was Admiral Mendek as a captain, just in case I wanted a battle station. I thought about bringing Cloak Mine along, maybe by taking Tyrol and having her give me a tech slot. But in the end, I decided that the Centurion was a better option, and I decided I also wanted the highest possible captain skill, which meant Shinzan and the fleet captain, which made it pretty much impossible for the enemy to match that captain skill. And even if you took the Federation and took Picard and the same fleet captain, you would still have to move first, and that was what I really wanted. So have a good time with this mission. I think it's well worth playing. I rate it 3 to 3.5 stars, and I'll see you guys next week.
The segment to explain the design contest. So here's what we'd like to do. In communication with a couple of fans, it's been brought up that you guys might actually like to have Warp Core Breach t-shirts. And Nick and I had mentioned this in our own conversations several months ago when it got way back burnered. But here's the thing. Neither Nick nor I are designers. We're not artists. We're not going there. But we know that someone out there is good at design. Computer design, drawing, something. So here's what we'd like. Draw something, Photoshop something, don't use any kind of copywritten image. So nothing from the show, nothing from movies, nothing from Attack Wing. Make us something we can put on a t-shirt and that we can sell. We're not looking to get rich off of this. We're not looking to make much money off of this. And what we want to do, if we love your design, is we will give you a free t-shirt, and we will also have some prizes. We have resources. We have a couple of booster ships available. So we'll figure that out. We will have more info on prizes the more we go. But we'd love to have a t-shirt out there for something. Come up with a cool slogan for the show. We don't really have anything, so we're open to that. If you want to talk to us and bounce ideas off of us in terms of a slogan before you go to all that design work, we'd be open to that. But yeah, do that. We'd love to have all the submissions in by July 1st. That gives you guys 4 weeks. Figure that should be some kind of enough time. This is something that we hope is fun. Hope, gives the community somewhere to go, and something you guys can wear to OP tournaments and have fun with. So thank you guys for listening, and I hope that this is something that intrigues you all, and we can go from there. And you can email submissions to warpcorebreachpodcast@gmail.com and just have a header of t-shirt contest or t-shirt design, something like that. And now it's time for the Warp Core Breach Top 3. We count them up from 3 to 1, and then we toss it over to our contributors, so you get the best bang for your buck. This episode's top 3, top ships to cloak. Cloak. Kind of that thing you love to do and hate to do, and then you run into mag charges and you go, no, I'm not doing that! Or cloaked mines, and you're like, really? But nevertheless, there are some ships that you just want to cloak. Or are just plain more fun to cloak.
Absolutely.
So Nick, you want to kick us off with your number 3?
Well, my number 3 looks a little bit to the future by about a week and a half, 2 weeks. I think a fun and exciting ship to cloak would be the new revised, ported board cube.
Why do you say that?
Well, I've had some fun cloaking the oversized cube that already exists, and legitimately, officially, in every way, playing it at the lower point value. And again, given that I'm not playing in a suggested play format restricted to 50 point or 52 plus 8 sort of situation, I've got more room to play. There's just so many cool different things to mess around with, and cloaking a giant cube is just fun to mess with the opponent, even if you just do it once.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Hey, toss on Borg Shield Matrix. Now you're actually rolling some legitimate defense dice.
Absolutely, and that's part of the plan.
Okay. I like it.
So, pure shenanigans.
It's cute, and I like it for that reason.
All right.
My number 3. I took a serious approach, at least for this one. The Scimitar.
Ah.
What's not to like? You want to stay cloaked? Take that Ox Power. Now you can stay cloaked when you fire.
Yeah.
It's thematic. It's good. It's got enough hull. And when you've taken some damage, just come out of cloak. Now you've got plenty of shields to take more damage.
Exactly. And that's why that one is actually my number 1 pick, simply because it's got a boatload of hull. It can take the damage while cloaked, because the defense dice are far from a guarantee. You could be rolling 10 of them every time and still either completely whiff or only get 1 or 2. Yeah. So you've got to have a solid hull to back it up. And that's another reason why that board cube is an amazing choice. Because, something gets through, that's okay.
Yeah, you're gonna make it for a while.
You like the buzzing of flies to me. I kind of put Janos Poha from Ghostbusters 2 in a kind of a New York style accent. My apologies to Peter McNichol for that faux pas.
I'm sure he won't mind.
Well, hey, if he wants to complain to me by phone or email or in person, I welcome the opportunity to interact with him. So bring it on, Peter.
That's warpcorebreachpodcast@gmail.com. We'll get it to the right person. All right, number 2. What do you got, Nick?
My number 2 pick for fun, again, is the IKS Chitang. It's a Brel class Klingon ship, which is not one of my favorites given that the hull is so low. But its ability, if you initiate an attack while cloaked, you may choose any number of your attack dice and re-roll them once. It's a built-in target lock. And especially for a faction that doesn't get battle stations as an option without having to pay extra for it, getting dice quality, especially for free, especially when you're technically on the defensive while cloaked, that's just bonus. That's awesome. And it's fun to play sometimes. And if you're playing an Era Pure event where, granted, most of the ships don't have more than 3 or 4 hull, then it's not so bad. So, again, for fun, the Chitang with that cloak ability, that's my number 2.
I like the Chitang. It's a good ship there.
Mm-hmm.
So my number 2 is the Vo.
Yes.
And it's not because it's a good attacker, but it's a great support ship.
Absolutely.
Now, you go, but wait, the Romulan science vessel, it's 4 points cheaper. Yeah. But it doesn't have an extra defense die, and it doesn't get an evade token every round.
Right. You forgo an attack, you get to evade another one. I like that.
But you know what's really good?
Mm-hmm.
Gelnon on the Vo.
Oh.
Move, take an evade, Gelnon for your action, keep cloaked, you never attacked.
Yeah, you're rolling attack dice, but it's not as an attack.
Yeah. So, kind of fun.
Yeah.
So, the Vo, for fun, for rolling lots of defense dice.
Yeah.
And for blowing up spectacularly when you do go boom.
Yeah, I love putting Terul on there. Sure, it adds a tech slot. You can throw in some cloak mines. And depending on what your opponent has resulted in their attack roll, you can forego some of your cloak dice, your extra defense dice you gain from the cloak there, to just add the extra evade, and you might not even have to really roll much of anything. So,
well, yeah, because Terul is 3 less dice.
Yep.
So then you still get to roll 4 dice, and you'd have 2 evade tokens, essentially.
Exactly.
So that's okay.
That's better than most ships, so who's complaining?
Yeah.
Especially when the big ships often get 1 or none for their defense dice.
Mm-hmm.
Except maybe like the Scimitar, who gets 2 when it's not cloaked, which is pretty significant.
Of course, most ships also have more than 2 hull. So
Granted. So you need that extra room.
Yeah, don't do that if your opponent's rolled like 6 or more hits, because otherwise you're going down.
Yeah, no. But if you've got enough to just completely negate his attack from evades, giver.
Yeah, if you're up against 3 or 4, give it a whirl.
Yeah, like the Vo is great as a vehicle for like Donatra and Mendak. Like you can be giving away the bonus from Donatra to your other ships in your fleet within range 1. You've got Mendak on there, and in all hopes, you may not even need your action on the Vo for anything but using Mendak's ability to gift a battle station to, say, your Scimitar or something else.
Right. And, I mean, if any other ship had, hey, free evade but don't attack, you probably wouldn't do it.
Exactly. You want it to be on a ship that's not worth attacking with. Otherwise, you want to attack.
And 1 attack die, only 2 at range 1, unless you're up against Borg. It's just not worth it.
Maybe fighters, if you come outside their arc, you throw a die or 2 at them, peel off a layer, that's not bad.
Okay, that's great early, but good luck
once they get
having
the dice.
that matter late. Yeah.
But then again, even if they're rolling 3 defense dice, as long as you actually get a hit or a crit, they still would be challenged to get an evade. Odds are still in your favor.
Right. I guess you could always scan.
True enough.
You have no way of improving your quality, so...
Mm-hmm.
Unless you use that battle station for yourself, but...
Right.
Not worth it.
Yeah, if you're out of range of your other ships at the time, and all you've got left is a 0 defense ship like the Xindi Weapon 0, a Borg ship, or fighters.
Yeah. So, extenuating circumstances, sure, there's times, but more often than not, probably not going to matter.
So, quick revisit to the Scimitar for my number 1 choice. Large hull, lots of defense dice, being able to attack and stay cloaked, built in, is pretty phenomenal, and it's the gift that keeps on giving that they don't want.
Yeah.
And the Scimitar has won plenty of local tournaments between Vancouver Island, Greater Vancouver, and elsewhere in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Todd! Although he does it more with generic remans than the actual Scimitar.
Still counts, man.
Oh, yeah. It's the same sculpt.
Yeah, exactly.
Todd and those painted warbirds. Which look awesome, but...
What's your number 1?
Yeah, that is the Belloc. And it's because it's the first Daredix. Yeah, whatever. It's the first Daredix that I actually like because it can stay alive.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to put an interface generator on it.
Yeah, like
I may want
built-in full battle station conversion. So, you roll a bunch of defense dice, you get 1 evade and a couple battle stations. Hey, there's a few evades.
It's not conversion, it's reroll, but...
Granted, but your odds increase significantly when you re-roll defense dice.
Yes. So, I mean, I still don't love it. You gotta put on, like, Type 8 and the additional phaser array from the Terex.
Yeah.
But, when I've pulled it from the booster brick, I go, I'm okay. I'm probably not losing this ship, and if I do, I'm not losing the rest of my fleet. And that's how a lot of people feel about it. So maybe it's booster bias, but I like what it has to offer, and I really like that named ability. I think it's a bit underrated. Maybe the Hakona's better, or the Kazara's better. Kazara's probably not better. The Hakona's actually probably better. In terms of a pure named ability, in terms of getting extra attack dice. But attack dice versus staying alive, you got to put your points into something. Yeah. I don't know. You got to be the judge of that. I really like it. I think it's worthwhile. I'd be playing it more if there wasn't a chance of pulling it as a booster, and I don't want to have 2 Daenerydixes sitting there and be forced into running 1 that's a generic.
Agreed. Yeah, but that's where I would counter your Belloc with the Borg Avatar of Tomed. Because you can still throw the additional phaser array on them, and you get yourself buffed up to 5.
Sure.
And you've got that extra shield if you want to go uncloaked. So...
I suppose.
Or when it's time to uncloak and absorb some damage.
But then at that point, wouldn't you rather have the Ashmer?
Yeah.
Then you get quality on your attack dice.
Yeah. I'd still rather have the Avatar of Tomed, in my opinion. Even if it's... Even the generic one. Save the 2 points on that extra shield. Go for the generic Avatar. the generic Borg avatar and go to town.
Okay, well, before we completely morph into which Daenerys is better, which may be a good topic for another day, since there's so many of them.
Not as many as people seem to think.
Yeah, you're right. It's because we all have multiples of them.
Indeed.
Let's toss it to our contributors and see what they have to say about their top ships to cloak. And then we'll be back.
I'll be back.
Barbecue sauce.
Hi everyone, I'm not Picard. My top cloaking ship, or top ship to cloak, I would go with the Scimitar, simply because one of the big downsides of the cloak is it robs you of action economy and it robs you of your shields. I think with the Scimitar it's got enough hull that that's not particularly as much of a problem as it could be, and it doesn't rob you of the action economy because you can do the named ability to stay cloaked even when you fire, so you're not recloaking all the time. So yeah, from my point of view, the Scimitar is the ideal cloaker, and I don't necessarily think that's a good thing, because I thought cloaking should be something that gave small ships an advantage rather than big ships like the Scimitar an advantage. But there's one of those things, I suppose, where game mechanics and the way the game works are not always going to reflect what happened on the TV show. But as it stands at the moment, the top cloaking ship for me is the Scimitar. Thanks very much.
Hi, this is Dave Griffin. Today we're talking about the top ship to cloak. For me, there's really only one possibility, and that's the Scimitar. Not because of its weapons, but because it got enough hull to take a shot or two, even with today's higher vulnerability for cloaks, even from large weapon ships, and still survive long enough to turn its shields on and finish out the game. It also has 2 tech slots and 2 evades, which means it'll have 6 evade dice, which are definitely better than the standard 5. So for me, that's the best ship to cloak, the Scimitar. Thanks.
Hello, this is Steven Stott with Ready to Play Gaming down in Columbia, South Carolina, here to cover today's question: what is the top cloaking ship? Well, we already know what everybody's going to say in terms of top cloakers. And since I don't normally play those groups, I'm going to go with one that mostly everybody will probably put their thumbs down and say, yeah, right, whatever. But this is what I'm going with. The Defiant. Federation ship, USS Defiant. Everybody knows it. Cisco's ship from Deep Space Nine. Put that cloak upgrade on there, and that is the ship I like going with, especially with the newer upgrades that you can put with that ship. Type 8 phasers, upgraded phasers. That makes it a very hard-hitting ship with the ability of cloak. Your big chance that you're taking there, obviously, is the 3 hull. But you know, with the maneuverability that the ship has with the cloaking, it's worth taking the chance, and particularly if you're playing against smaller hitting ships, it stands as good a chance as any, and is quite thematic if you like playing battles, you know, dealing with Deep Space Nine, and putting the Cisco on there and having all kinds of fun with that. So that's the ship I'm going with, the USS Defiant. Feel free to criticize at will. This is Steve Stott, hoping all your dice rolls are hits and evades.
So, final thoughts. So, Nick pointed this out to me last night, and he said, is it true that they're getting rid of resources? And I went and I did some research. And I started looking at the solicits for various OPs coming up. And I went, that's interesting. It kind of looks like that. So I'm pulling up specifics here so I can cite my sources. But if you look at the Klingon Civil War solicit, it says 10 limited edition participation prizes. And you go and you look at the Trouble with Tribbles, and it says 10 limited edition participation prizes. And now Tribbles come out in August. Klingon Civil War is September, October, December. Release dates. And then you go back to Corbomite Maneuver, and Corbomite Maneuver says 10 limited edition resource and reference card participation prizes.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Is it being phased out, or are they just mixing things up?
Well, what that says to me is that we're getting at least 4 OPs without resources.
Mm-hmm.
And for what it's worth, Tin Man is also a resource OP.
Right. So I'm wondering if these are not resources, might they be upgrades, or are they going to be something else that can function in, or are they going to be alternate art or some other fanciful concept?
Yeah. So the interesting thing is, it just says cards.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's
Or
prizes. Yeah.
So participation prizes, it could be tokens or something for all we know. That would be a bold step forward that we may not expect from WizKids at this point, but would be an amazing and welcome option.
Yeah. Because what we know, and this is reading from Klingon Civil War, but the other side is 3 limited edition cards and tokens competitive prize packs.
Mm-hmm.
We know it's not cards and tokens. So it wouldn't be new ships. It wouldn't be captains, new captains, because they need captain tokens.
Right.
But it could be talents. It could be crew. It could be weapons. It could be tech. Can't be admirals, sadly.
Yeah, because again, you'd need tokens or modifier token. You'd need captain tokens plus modifier tokens,
which is unfortunate.
But would likely be included in the prizes for each event. So.
Yeah. Now prizes is still
vague,
nebulous, however you want to say it. So you're right. They could be anything at this point, which is awesome.
Heck, I'd be down for like a really cool Star Trek themed dice bag. Like Dice Masters has had some pretty neat dice bags.
I wouldn't think that they'd give those away at 10 per pack.
No, but it not necessarily at that level. Like usually they give like to each, winner or to like a secondary prize, but like 10 each, they could do all sorts of things.
Yeah, I could see it being alt art cards. And I wouldn't love that because, we've encouraged people, like, go to the OPs, you get something new just for showing up.
Yes. And that's one of the grand things that we love about the resources is even if we don't necessarily love each and every individual resource, it's something new, it's something different, and everybody who shows up gets something that you can actually potentially use, depending on your play style.
Terrible thought. What if it's just errated cards?
Oh, I would definitely think it would not be that. That's the kind of thing that realistically should be issued like they did with the non-Dominion Vulcan Captain. Or
and just part of the pack.
Yeah. Or release in a retail pack of the faction in question, give reprints of certain cards, like ideally of non-unique cards, or of the unique ones, to an appropriate ship.
Yeah. So, okay, let's hope they don't go that route, because that would just be bad. That was my mind going, but what if?
Yeah.
That's like let's call that worst case scenario.
Dun, dun,
Second
dun.
worst case. Worst case scenario is that they don't do anything.
Well, they can't do nothing when they've already said they're going to be offering 10 participation prizes.
Don't challenge them. That's a bad idea. I don't know.
Now, given costing and everything else, looking at it from a more logical point of view, I can't see it being anything more than like a printed option, because things like tokens and like whether they're acrylic or cardboard or whatever are going to cost a significant amount more than just printing a card, regardless of the size of it. Like, granted, we've had some resources printed on token stock, the thick paperboard, and granted that was typically in the beginning of the game, and things whittled their way down to standard card size.
Right. Master Strategist being the last one
Right.
to use that.
Yeah.
And that was peak performance.
Yeah, because the maneuver... Well, didn't one of them have that evasive maneuvers come after?
Q1. Yeah, Q1 with the evasive
There
action.
you go. Yeah.
Okay, those two were back-to-back, so that's why
There you go. Close enough.
Yeah.
Points for time frame.
Yeah. Right idea. Last summer.
So, based on a costing point of view, economy, business sense on the side of WizKids, I would say it would have to be cards or something similar. And I'm thinking if it's not going to be a resource, it's either going to be something generic, like maybe cross fingers, neutral upgrades, non-faction upgrades.
That would be awesome.
Failing
we've been talking about them for long enough.
Yeah.
I know it's something that I pitched to WizKids when I first came in as the preview guy. Because they said, like, hey, what are some ideas you have for the game? And that's one of the things I tossed out to them. And I know that they were receptive of that one especially. I don't know. Like, that's not a promise of anything.
But it's the easiest one, or the least challenging, or potentially the least troublesome idea to actually implement, because they don't have to create a whole new faction. They can just create a card that works with any faction, and the best thing about it is it works for everybody, whether you play official rules with mixed, or you play ship pure, faction pure, fleet pure, whatever. It doesn't matter. It will work for everybody. It pleases everybody. You can't go wrong with that concept. It just comes down to the individual cards. What are you offering us that can be used on any ship?
Yeah, I could see them releasing some of the cards that we don't have yet, like a Neelix, a Kess, this way. I don't love that avenue, but if this is the only way to get them, I would rather have it this way than not at all.
Yes, and shy of having like card booster packs that don't come with ships and all that, it would be a viable way to do it. And given the proliferation of resources out there on the market, whether for sale, for trade, whatever, if you don't go to an event or can't go to an event, there's still a reasonably good chance you can get one without having to pay exorbitant prices for them.
Oh yeah, well, because 10 come in a kit.
So. Exactly. So, depending on who you're buddy with, either in person or online through Facebook, Reddit, Board Game Geek, what have you, there's a good chance you'll either get it for cheap or free. There's a number of people out there that'll just give them away. Say, hey, you need one? Sure, buddy, I'll send you one. Just either cover the postage or heck with that. Send it anyway. depending on the person. And even if you do have to pay a little bit for it, it's usually not too much.
Right. Or some people will say, hey, I'm going to be missing like 3. Can you get me one of each and save the postage for all 3?
Exactly.
That's just better. Yeah. So that's what we know. Hopefully we'll know more. Let's see. Trouble with Tribbles releases at the end of August. That should be August 24th or 31st. We'll see, though. With the delay of Voyage Home, that might get pushed to the end of September. So we'll know something either end of August or end of September about what this is all going to look like. I know that's several months away now, but...
Time has a tendency to fly.
Yes. And who knows, maybe people going to Origins Worlds can ask a WizKids employee about it. If you're nice. Just say, hey, noticed this. What's the story here?
What do you have in store for us? And be excited, or be interested, be keen. Like, if you're going to be approaching someone like that, come at it from a positive point of view. They're likely because it's their job, sure, but also because it's something that they're interested in. So share that connection with that person, and you're more likely to get a positive result.
Yeah, come at it carrying your entire collection of Star Trek Attack Wing and be like, hey, I got all of this, I want to add to it. Tell me more. Tell me what's coming. That would be an awesome way to do it.
More!
Give me more.
More power?
All right. We're getting crazy now.
Getting?
Yeah, we've gotten crazy now.
We've gone to ludicrous speed!
Warp core breach in 10.
You told
9,
me never to pull that lever.
8.
Wrong lever!
7. 6.
And on that note...
5. 4.
This is Nick.
3.
And this is David.
2.
Ejecting the
1.
core.
Warp core ejected.
Warp Core Breach is produced by Nick Norris and David Montgomery, with additional content from our contributors. Our computer is voiced by Corinne Donnelly.
Warp Core Breach is not endorsed, sponsored, or affiliated with CBS Studios Incorporated or the Star Trek franchise. All Star Trek trademarks and logos are owned by CBS Studios Incorporated.
All sound files are used under Creative Commons 3.0 by attribution. For specifics, please visit our Facebook page by searching Warp Core Breach Podcast. If you want to contribute to the show, let us know on the Facebook page, or you can email us at warpcorebreachpodcast@gmail.com.
Stay groovy.
You messed up my groove!
Don't be square like the Borg, because they definitely ain't Swedish.
Great, now I want meatballs.
The Borg have that too, but they're big, they fly, and they hurt.
Oh. Because they're spheres.
Now, if only you could put tribbles in the cryostasis and have them still work, because then you'd have frozen meatballs.
Wow, way to give me the blooper right at the end. That's too good.